Alrighty, it is time for another creator commentary with me, your faithful host, Matt Orchard, Psychology of a Douchebag today. And look, one of my, I would say, least favorite videos on the channel, so sorry to people who don't enjoy listening to me criticize myself today. Having said that, also a very interesting one in terms of kind of being, I guess you could say, historic for the channel as well. So a bit of background on this one. It was an interrogation that I really struggled with, and when picking it up was kind of going, what to do with this? And the sort of eureka moment was, well, what if we kind of used it to bag out the suspect, make fun of him, basically make more of a comedy video and lean into the humor more. So while the end result, and we'll go into reasons I don't like it later, ended up, not being one I'm a huge fan of, that decision and the leaning into the humor aspect while still doing crime subjects, so it's not a parody video by any stretch of the imagination, that's something that became more and more a part of the channel in subsequent videos as time went on. So, this is, as I say, a bit of a turning point, and while it may be among my least favorites, it's not exactly one that I dislike, and partially because of that, because it's, to repeat myself, kind of a significant milestone sort of vid. Other things about this, it happens to be, or at least was at the time, probably JCS's favorite thing I made, up until that point, again, partially because of that humor, got me the first shout out from their channel, but we'll go into that in a little more detail when it comes up. And as we're seeing here, horrible crime, so we're not making fun of the crime itself, obviously. Let's listen in for a bit, see what comes up. Eventually surrendered himself to officers in a field off of Kinburn Side Road in Kinburn, Ontario. The following morning, he is interviewed by Detective Sergeant Kaylee O'Neill. The interview could be summarized as nearly 5 hours of contemptible self-pity and tiresome ranting. Good editing in this one, by the way, especially that moment that we've passed now, but the very intro. I was actually watching it back before doing this, surprised at how good the editing was, given I, overall am not a huge fan of the vid.
That's your food and coffee on the left there. What I want to make sure is that there's no misunderstanding about what we're here talking about.
Does anybody else think the detective sort of sounds like Dave Rubin?
Basil. Is it okay to call you Basil? Is that what you normally go by?
No, Basil.
Basil?
Here it is. Hold on. Here we get our first glimpse into Basil Borutski's underlying narcissism. Most people unfortunate enough to be named after a culinary herb would not go out of their way to correct someone for having a less embarrassing interpretation. Basil, however, is insistent that Detective O'Neill gets his stupid name right. O'Neill then proceeds to cover his bases by making... So there you go, that joke got me my first public shout out from JCS on their Twitter. I know at least my contact in JCS is a big fan of the stupid name Basil joke, which, some people, gloomy gusses in the comments have kind of gone, look, that was a bit too far. You don't have to make fun of someone's name. It's like making fun of their appearance or whatever. Get over it. And I do know Basil in certain jurisdictions, as opposed to Basil, is common, if not the norm. But what can I say? I still thought it was funny and served me well.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Basil.
I'll let somebody know.
Okay. Well, I'm here, right? I'm the one that can make that happen for you. So if you let me know, if you change your mind, I'll be more than happy to get a lawyer on the phone for you. Is that fair?
Well, okay.
I asked a moment ago if anyone else thought the detective sounded like political hack commentator Dave Rubin. Sorry if I've annoyed any Dave Rubin's fans out there with that comment, but I've never heard a single commenter say that he sounds a bit like Rubin bar the accent. I've got to say, I think it's quite striking. That sort of, not nasally at all, but still sort of seeming to speak from the nose. Hey guys, I'm I like to hear it out from both sides. I used to be a liberal, but then after some time and introspection, I realized Republicans are always right about everything. If you kind of, project that onto the detective, see if you can hear what I'm saying.
Loosen the handcuff because I had my hand cut off. Who cares?
Is it when you were coming over from Ottawa, the cuffs were too tight? Is that what you're saying?
And they left me sitting outside here in the car. I kept telling them I could hardly feel my fingers anymore. My whole hand swole up. No, it's not blue. I don't care. I had my hands cut off. I feel things a little different than what you do. I was only asking for common sense.
Is it fair to say that you're getting that from me now?
Getting what?
Common sense and courtesy?
No.
And so what have I not done here to...
You're a police officer. I have lots of experience with police officers. I just told you about a car accident and how they treat me, so I don't trust you one little bit.
Okay.
I know all about your brotherhood. One of you fucks up or lies, the rest of you all hide it.
Doesn't sound like you've had very many positive experiences with policemen.
I've never had a positive experience with a policeman.
Hey, here's the thing about that comment. I've never had a positive experience with a policeman. I'm stuttering and stammering a little bit today, guys. I've got to get into the rhythm of it. But yeah, the statement, I've never had a positive experience with police. Now, this is a subject, especially in today's political climate, where maybe some people won't like my take on that sort of stance. But I would say anyone who says a thing like that, most likely it is to some extent on them. Just in my time with interacting with police, granted in New Zealand and Australia, granted as a Caucasian man, I know there are certain variables, and again, it's a very heated topic, but based on my interactions and my, what I've seen, other people's interactions as well, I would say by and large, most of the time, if you have a run-in with the cops and it's not under, very, circumstances where they have to not be very nice to you, cops are all right. The average cop on the street, I'm sure there are some bad apples, as they say, but by and large, cops have always been relatively polite and reasonable with me, even when it's a situation where I haven't, you couldn't say I was doing nothing wrong. I mean, an example I go to, this is from my early 20s, and it's a classic small-level, low-level crime, but a crime nonetheless, right? It was in Sydney. I must have been all of 20 years old, and I had just been working in a call centre and not smoked pot for a long time. And there was this girl who worked at the same call centre, and I guess I just mentioned that to her, and she's like, I can hook you up with some pot, Matt. Nice British lady. And so I took her up on it, and she bought me like a little 50 bag or whatever. And I was also, okay, this is going to be about what idiots fucking 20-year-olds are as well, but I was wearing a leather jacket every day at the time with a bunch of little pockets in it, and so I just popped the weed in my pocket for just a day where I felt like using it. I'm not a massive stoner or anything, and I never took it out when I got home. So for like the rest of the week, pretty much, at least several days, I was just walking around, going to work and back every day with a 50 of weed in my jacket. And one day I'm on the train, you can see where this is going, coming home, and I go up the escalator, and what would you know, it's a drug dog day. And they find the 50 on me, and when the police come up to me and they go, sir, do you have any drugs on you, or what have you, I kind of go, yeah, sir, very kind of, it's scary if you've never been, pulled up by police before. So I just immediately go, yeah, sir. This is part of why they were nice to me, I'm sure. As they, should have been, I think, all things considered. But, they confiscate the pot, obviously. They weren't that nice. But that goes without saying. But they, I remember when we were walking to the back of the station, the train station, I didn't take me downtown. We were going to the back of the station where the kind of weighing equipment and stuff was to get written up and all that. The lady cop was actually like building rapport with me, but like not in a extracting information sort of way. Asking nothing that could really come back to anything incriminating, but more just calm down, buddy. Like relax, don't worry about it. That kind of vibe. Like yeah, chill. You shouldn't have this on you. We're confiscating it, but it's alright. Don't sweat. They let me smoke a cigarette while I was waiting, for them to weigh everything up and everything. And then at the end, the guy, like after putting it on the scale, he goes, "See, doesn't even register." At which point I think, if you were a smart ass, you go, "Oh, does that mean technically I wasn't carrying weed?" But it doesn't even register. It's such a small amount, it won't even show up on the scale. So, basically he explains, if it were to happen 3 more times, you'd have to go to court. But basically, if you don't come into any run-ins with the law again, it won't. It's not the kind of thing that's going to show up if you try and board a plane to go to the States or wherever else. It's not on your record. And then they let me go, and everything was all peachy. But anyway, they're just an example of whenever I've had occasion, and they have been rare occasions to be fair, it's probably why my experiences have been good, but whenever I've had occasion to have run-ins with the law, they haven't been the biggest assholes in the universe. So, coming back to this video, finally, when it's like that expression, if everyone you meet is an asshole, chances are you're the asshole. If every interaction with every cop you've ever had has been a negative one, chances are, I would posit, it's probably at least not entirely on the police. Alright, let's listen in for a little bit and see what we come up with. It's actually good if I go on big tangents with this one though, because it is an under-edited video. I don't think there's too much to listen into here, but let's just see what we come up with.
Which is why I asked you that question initially. It's also been my experience that people say they don't care what other people think. That's usually not true. Everyone cares. It's human nature to care. You cared enough to do what you did, so you're going to have a hard time convincing me that you don't care what people think about you. You wait, Basil.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about. It don't make any sense at all.
Okay. Do you need me to explain anything? Am I speaking too fast?
I actually have in my notes that around this section there's not too much to talk about, so let's spend a little bit of time then talking about why I would put this in, I'm going to say, bottom 3 episodes. I reckon Anthony Palmer is my least favorite. So we're going to have more of the less favorite ones in the early part, naturally. Although, funnily enough, after this, I think we've got a couple of what I would classify as really good ones. Larry Nasser, and then especially John Edwards and Ted Haggard. So this is probably the last video I made that I would say, like, on balance, I don't like, probably. But anywho, sorry, getting tangenting again there. I mentioned it being under-edited. I think this could potentially actually make a really good 30-minute video, or 25-minute video, say. But it's back before I found my voice. As I said, we had the idea of going more into the humor with this one, as we did, but I've still got that kind of, but people want to see, interrogation analysis, so make sure you analyze some stuff, even if you are probably reaching a little bit with that, and also including, I said he was annoying, so make sure you keep in every, period that you think sort of demonstrates as annoying. Let's give myself a bit of credit. The thing is about 3 hours long, the full interrogation, so it's not that under-edited, but again, stuff like that, including stuff that really, like, anything it serves to illustrate has been plenty illustrated. So I think if I were to go back to this video, which I've got no intention of doing, but just if I had a time machine, it would be that same thing of let's make it more of a comedy video, even though the crime is anything but But let's just amp that up, by another 70%. Let's keep it really snappy and don't worry about leaving too much on the cutting room floor, worry about the opposite thing. And the good thing is, I think I have taken the lesson since then. If you look at Savannah Greywind, right? A recent video, I think that's definitely taking on board lessons learned from this one, because that's probably... it's probably 18 hours of interrogation footage, but if you were to cut out all of the time where they're just in a room alone, it's probably still around 10 hours of interrogation footage. So it may be an hour and a half long video, but I went through that, even after I'd cut it down, I went through it another probably 3, 4, 5 times with a real eagle eye going, is there any fat here? Even just little 30-second moments you can chop. They add up, and even if they don't add up to, tens of minutes, they do add up in the sense of making things really feel like they're flowing much better. And that's what this lacks. That's what I think is the problem with it. It's not a matter of laziness, it's just a matter of an unrefined eye, which is, again, why I'm not too worried about going off in massive tangents and not talking about the video too much. But having said that, let's listen in for a little bit, and we'll see if some noteworthy things pop up. If they don't, I've actually even put a note here that it would be a good video to just talk about some random shit. So I've got some random shit we can talk about if I go too long without having anything to say.
Would be with somebody that is supposed to be representing me.
I didn't catch the first bit of that, Basil. What about
He is actually Basil Borutski, I would say, in terms of... I don't like IQ as a categorical measurement of intelligence, but just as a marker of what I'm getting at. On an IQ level, is probably one of the smarter people to be in an interrogation I've covered, which is in no way supposed to be praised for the man, I hope goes without saying. But that stuff like, if you were in my court, you'd be my lawyer, and the kind of real resonance to engage with the detective too early on, it shows, a higher sense of awareness and acceptance of the situation he's in and what's best for him than we would typically see in most of these.
Representing evil.
No, I'm representing the truth. I'm representing 3 dead girls, 3 dead women.
If you were, you'd be looking into
2 ex-girlfriends of yours.
3.
3? No, I don't think Natalie was. I think she turned you down, right?
I lived with her for 3 years. What are you talking about?
That on-screen text point I made about how he's going to contradict himself in terms of having a romantic relationship with all 3 women, I was probably over nitpicking and analyzing with that, to be honest. I think it is kind of established that he didn't have even a pretext of any relationship with Anastasia. But he does say stuff about she was trying to seduce him or whatever at some point, which is, bearing in mind what we know about the case, probably very it's unlikely to be as he's representing it. But anyway, there you go, just a small aside there. Romantic relationship wouldn't have really been material to what Borutski was in court for when Kuzik testified against him. On December 30th of 2013, Borutski had strangled and beaten Kuzik, as well as lighting several of her possessions on fire, after she told him she wanted him out of her house. He served just over a year in jail for charges of assault and mischief, being released on December 27th of 2014, despite refusing to sign a court order prohibiting him from contacting Kuzik. He also disobeyed court orders to attend counselling, a breach of his probation which he was never pulled up on.
That was her end statement thing. It's okay, some people.
The reason I'm not saying much right now is there is something I want to talk about that I think is coming up soon. So hang tight.
So is that why you killed these girls, Basil? Because they're not going to get their comeuppance in court? They're going to lie and they're going to escape responsibility?
if you're a cop, you should know that people that use the system are guilty.
What was done to you
If the community
that hurt you so
wanted to
badly
know-
that you had to
If
do
the
these
community
things?
wanted to know, they would start an independent inquiry and look into the past. How did it ever evolve to get to this? Because Basil Borutski is a kind, caring, God-fearing human being. So how
You know
did
what?
it get there? I guess
That is a point we agree on.
we need to go back
Here it comes, I think.
and find out how could this have happened.
That is a point we agree on. If there's one thing I do know, what people have said about you is you're a kind, caring person, which is why I'm having a difficulty with this contrast in behavior.
Basil Borutski's reputation as a kind and caring person is very mixed. He was indeed known to do kind things, such as free-of-charge handyman work for friends and neighbours, but even in that instance, his actions were sometimes not as virtuous as they may seem on a surface level. For instance, he began building a deck on his first victim, Carol Culluton's cottage, without her permission. That was during a period where he was attempting unsuccessfully to initiate a romantic relationship with her. The psychological manipulation. Alright, so that was what I was waiting for. That thing about building an entire deck on someone's property without permission. Now, it goes without saying, I think, that is a huge breach of, what's the word? Breach of comfort, boundaries. You don't... You don't do a whole DIY project in someone's house without checking on them first. But even take out the no permission, just got up and did it part. Unsolicited, extreme shows of generosity is something that I, in my life, regard as a huge red flag, and am very wary of it. And that's as a man, as a woman, I probably don't need to tell you that is a giant red flag and something to really watch out for and be reticent toward. But I just think an interesting example of, supposed kind things that are actually sort of danger signs. If someone ever, without any seeming expectation of reward, is going out of their way to do really nice things for you, it's a pretty safe bet that no matter what they say, they are expecting some kind of reward, and likely not a reward that you would ever actually enter into, agreeing to give them, were they to state it up front as a price they were asking you to pay in exchange for their act of kindness. It's my belief. Don't get me wrong, if someone wants to shout me a beer or whatever not long after meeting me, I'm not gonna say like, hey, before you buy me that beer, just understand that you should not expect anything in return. I'm not, not a nutcase. But yeah, if we are talking about something like, what would it be, like a low-level construction job, right? Building a deck, as any carpenters out there can tell me, but I'm sure it's more than a day job, or if it's a day job, you would be an extremely efficient carpenter. Whenever someone goes, hey, do you want me to... I'm struggling to think of an example right now, but something that is very high effort that would be like more than, say, half a working day of their time, and they're not one of your best friends, I wouldn't take the offer 99% of the time, and B, if you were to, decide to make an exception to that rule I've given you, very roughly phrased rule, I would risk looking like a little bit of an uptight dickhead, and just before agreeing to it, saying, hey, look, I really appreciate this, but before you undertake this, you have to understand that when you say you expect nothing in return, I'm taking on your word at that, and you should anticipate that there will more likely than not be nothing in return. You're still okay with doing this extreme kindness for me? It's generally what I would what I'd recommend. This doesn't apply to if your child goes missing and someone's offering to give you $10,000 or something because they were so moved by the story in the news. In that case, take it, all right? There are exceptions to this sort of thing. But I'm just talking about in your own day-to-day personal relationships. If that kind of stuff comes up, I'd always be very wary of it, because that is a person who is potentially gearing up to take advantage of you, and if not, hold a massive grudge that's going to be way more trouble than it's worth.
All the time. Realistically, where would you put yourself?
An 8 or a 9, because I do tell what I would call white lies if I have to go around something so as not to hurt somebody, or I may not tell something that I know if I think it's going to hurt my daughter or something.
So what's y'all's opinion on white lies and lying in general? See, I mean, this is going to be the tangent going and doing a sides commentary today, but what do you think of that? It's always a very interesting topic for me. I think I've got the boilerplate, standard take on that, where it's, well, if it's to spare someone's feelings, then don't do it. But there have been, Sam Harris, a philosopher I like reading sometimes. He's got an interesting book on it, which I think might be free, but it's called Lying if you want to look it up. I'm sure you can get the PDF online for free, without too much guilt there. But it kind of makes the radical case that no, you should actually never lie, even to spare someone's feelings. And the rationale behind that is that basically, even those small lies can build up, and you have to start juggling things and managing people's expectations and so forth. And it can just lead to unnecessary stress, as well as, let's say weight would be a classic example. If you think I look a bit fat, most people go like, no, man, you're in great shape. But what if you're saying that as a white lie, and then the person who actually otherwise, if you'd been kind, like, well, man, look, I don't think you're obese or anything, like you're not repulsive to look at, but yeah, if you're thinking of, dropping a few pounds, I wouldn't say it would be a bad call. I'd totally endorse that, actually. You could use it, They might sting for a moment, but that might actually be the catalyst that makes that person go, you know what, I am gonna start taking up jogging, or, have those few extra helpings during the week of fast food or what have you, and really make a positive change in their life. Whereas if you'd gone the standard, it's okay to tell a white lie not to hurt someone's feelings sort of thing, they very well could have gone, oh yeah, I'm alright, Matt says I don't look like a fat ass, so never mind, just keep on trucking, Joe, or whatever. I don't have a fat friend named Joe, I'm just saying. But anyway, what are your positions on lying? When should you do it? What's the cutoff line? Leave your comments below.
People may have assumed that there was a relationship going on, but they would have to be cuckoo, because there was a 20-some year age difference. And if you don't believe me, simply go and talk to my doctor, because I told my doctor she wanted to have something. She walked around, she'd get in the hot tub naked. You ask my doctor. I went there and I said, what is wrong with me? I cannot get an erection. She does all this to me. She'd even sit on my lap. He said, Basil, it's psychological. She's more like your daughter.
So yeah, this is the stuff I was talking about before, about how he goes on to allege that she tried to seduce him.
When they asked her if we had a relationship, she said yes. And the reason was, or they said, were you in a relationship? She said yes. That was a lie. She may have wanted it to be more when she tried to part Carl and I, and eventually she did. And Carl knew all of this.
I mean, I'm sure his characterization of that part especially is a bunch of bullshit, but I'm probably stating the obvious there.
She knew all about Anastasia and me treating her like, or calling her like a dog.
Basically, whenever people build up a narrative of just everybody screwing me over all the time and out to get me. I mean, he is a classic example of this. If everyone you meet is an asshole, you're probably the asshole thing, right? Yeah, whenever someone builds a narrative like that, 99% of the time, they aren't actually that lucky and hard done by. It's all a narrative they've been building up in their head, which is why, aside from the fact that he shot 3 women to death, is why I would say pretty much any characterization he gives of his interpersonal relationship with these women is safely assumed to be BS, just because there's so little, well, none, absolutely none of, and then I did this wrong thing too, to be fair, is none of that. And if there's none of that, you're probably not being told a very reliable story. Carpentry jobs. He would arrive at her residence unannounced so frequently that those around her categorized it as stalking.
All for nothing. It was all for money. She didn't get much. Natalie got the most.
Borutski's relationship with Natalie Warmerdam began pleasantly enough, and she even believed him when he bemoaned his ex-wife's lying in court about domestic abuse that never happened. Over time, however, he became violent toward her and her son too, escalating to the point where on July 27th of 2012, he was arrested and charged with assault and uttering death threats. He served only 30 days in jail and never attended the court-ordered partner assault response program that was part of his parole. This was all before his battery of Anastasia Kuzik.
Anastasia Natalie got about 200,000, 180 or something plus. Well, pretty well all my equipment. And then her son burnt the garage down. Oh, my tools were in there. I got nothing.
I don't know why that line makes me laugh. All my tools were in there. It sucks to have your garage burnt down, don't get me wrong. If that's true. There's something about the way he says it. All my tools were in there. It's kind of like that Simpsons joke with Dr. Colossus, like, but all my stuff is in there. Go back and watch Who Shot Mr. Burns if you don't know that reference.
13 maybe, or something like that. I don't know. And then she went back with her boyfriend and she's laughing. Him and her are laughing.
We've got a good text joke coming up here on my notes. Oh, I know what we're talking about. Here we go. Wait a minute.
Best friend that'll do anything that she wants.
Not how acronyms work. I thought that was pretty good. Anyway, I guess I didn't have anything more to say about that joke other than congratulating myself. So, congratulations, Matt. I've also got in my notes that we are going back into a period where there won't be a whole lot to talk about. So, speaking of other shit that I just wanted to bring up when we had a moment, it's got nothing to do with my channel or this video. Who else was following that sub story, the submersible, last week? I know it's old news now, right? But I haven't had an outlet to really talk to my audience about it, and I've got a bunch of thoughts. The thing, I mean, obviously now catching you up to date, if you haven't been following, I'm sure you couldn't have missed this. It did implode, so we know what happened now. But the thing that I found so fascinating, sort of morbidly fascinating, no wonder I run a channel like this, about the story and why I was, so captured by it. I wasn't one of the people going, like, get it out of my newsfeed. I was going, hook it to my veins, give me more, man. It was that whole idea. I'd never thought about being at the bottom of the ocean before, trapped at the bottom of the ocean. So, which is what I was thinking about, obviously, like a lot of us were during that time when we didn't know it imploded. Just imagining that, right? Imagine you're going down on this sort of tourist trip or whatever. I'm always thinking from the perspective of the tourists, not the adventurers and especially CEO, though I'm sure, it will be terrifying for them as well, don't get me wrong. But imagine you're a tourist, right? And you're traveling down to see, the Titanic, and you're getting all excited, and then all of a sudden, and the lights just go out. Now the lights go out, right? Just that part, the little kind of beam you've got on the sub, as well as, the whatever's making it propel goes out too. That would also be a worry. But imagine that, and you're at the bottom of the ocean floor, and it is pitch black. Like, unlike you can even imagine almost. Like, shut your eyes for a few seconds right now. Okay. way darker than that. There is no light at all. Sunlight stopped miles above where you are right now in this little can, nonetheless. Not that it even makes a difference when you're that deep in terms of how light goes. So that's just the first part. You are in pitch blackness. You cannot see your hand in front of your face. You are shins to ass with 4 other people in this thing. And you have the knowledge of where you are. You know you're at the bottom of the ocean throughout all of this. And you know how vast the area of search is. And I mean, I don't know if that 19-year-old kid knew, but he would have had an idea, I'm sure, of just how statistically infeasible it is to find that very small needle in that incomprehensibly giant haystack. And you've also got the knowledge that you have 96 hours of oxygen to keep you going while you wait for that incredibly unlikely possibility. So just remember, while you're in this pitch blackness, shins to ass with these 4 people, try not to breathe too much. Just small in, small out, small in, small out. Good fucking luck. Good fucking luck. Which is why I wonder, had it been a situation where they didn't implode and it did go to the bottom of the ocean and just sit there, and had it been that we had, against all odds, managed to locate it and bring it up, well, we certainly were never going to do that in the 20th hour, right? That's not even low odds, that's no odds. So best case, we would have found them in, say, the 80th hour. Imagine if we had found them at the 80th hour and we had brought that sub back up to the surface. What do you think we would have found when we opened the hatch? That's what I wonder. Do you think we would have found 5 people who just decided to keep it together and not breathe too much during those 80 whatever hours, 86, 96 hours, whatever it was? 85 hours or so in my hypothetical scenario. Would we have found that? Or would we have found, something very different from that? Put it that way. As I say, it was a topic of morbid fascination for me to just kind of wonder and kind of very darkly daydream about. And then to learn that it didn't implode, I mean, it's sort of I don't like to put it this way, but if we're being honest, good news, right? They didn't go out like that in those kind of circumstances. That in and of itself is fascinating, because now you're juxtaposing one of the worst ways possible to die. I would put it second only to burning, and some people might not even agree with me on that, but I'm going to give burning the edge. And then conversely, what actually happened, I think you've got to put up there with maybe some of the best ways to possibly die, right? An instant implosion. I think the way they're saying it would have happened is they would have been able to hear the whole kind of twist or snap, or I haven't really gotten myself very familiar with the engineering of it all, I'm afraid. But just the horror scenarios, that's all I've been putting my attention on. But they would have been able to hear that or whatever. But after that, all right, and the maybe, hey, what was done? I probably make my mic peak there with that clap, so sorry for that. But that in and of itself is fascinating. It's difficult to kill people that quickly on land. Probably need an explosion, right? Beyond strapping C4 to someone's head, you can't kill people as quickly as those guys died. It was just 30 milliseconds, they're saying. So literally the clap of a hand, and I'm talking about the clap part, not the bringing the hands together, just that quick. You go from being totally alive to there is no more you. That in and of itself is pretty, may they rest in peace. At least the 2 adventurers and the 2 tourists. Opinions may vary on the CEO, but may they rest in peace. No disrespect intended, but it is something to think about. What a tangent, and how unrelated to this video, but there you go. I needed something to fill the time. Let's listen in for a little bit, and let's see what's going to come up with what we've got left. I think we've still got a while to go.
Being the zombie and me over here looking at the zombie, it's like 2 a lot of what I'm telling you is history of 20 years. Got to here. And then there's the zombie part. So the guy watching the zombie is me. The guy that's watching the zombie is how I got here. Does that make sense to you? The 20 years of my ex-wife, from where it started to...
There's always a reason why something happens.
One thing we missed because I was talking about the submersible, but I had in my notes just to mention as trivia. There is another joke in here that, as I said, happened while we were talking. It's I put in my notes it's around the 38-minute mark if you want to pull up the original video and go recheck what I'm listening to. But there's a point just before I'm talking about the zombies and stuff right now where he's talking about, see, I couldn't kill myself because I'm innocent, and so that would be murder because killing myself would be the killing of an innocent. And I deliberately put in really low volume, like high enough that you can hear it, but also low enough that you could totally miss it if you were just zoned out or whatever at the time, because I want it to be sort of an Easter egg. But just, I was finding him so insufferable in my own viewing around that moment that I decided to put in a kind of, Jesus fucking Christ, that guy. And so it's on audio, but just barely. And a lot of people have gone, oh, did you hear Matt say, like, Jesus Christ, that asshole, or Jesus fucking Christ, like, very rarely getting the actual words right because it's that faint. But that's what I wanted to include there, just for your knowledge. It's Jesus Christ, this fucking guy is the dialogue that's going when I do that little subliminal, I guess you could call it commentary moment. Jesus Christ, this fucking guy. That's what I'm saying under my breath.
Around her head. And she just kept saying, this is not you, Basil, this is not you.
Basil.
Ah.
Take my hand for a second.
For what?
I just want to shake your hand. I want to thank you for being the guy that you said you are this whole time we've been here, a truthful, good person.
Now you see, there's a total Dave Rubin moment. He doesn't even sound like it. He's acting like it. You know, got this guy going, you know, I killed these 3 innocent women and really they weren't innocent. They were guilty because they crossed me, and just ends the session with, Basil, I just want to thank you so much for being such a straightforward guy, and I've learned something about you. You're not as bad as everyone said. You've actually got some points to think about and consider. Dave Rubin. Anywho, whatever. I'm not actually criticizing the detective for that, by the way. I know it's just a technique. I just you get what I'm saying. Again, if you enjoy Dave Rubin and his show, I'm not saying you're not welcome around these parts, but that's obviously an indicator of my opinion on the man.
Take your time, take a minute.
Don't touch me, please. I don't know why I wanted to take the gun out of the apartment, because I don't know why. So I took it and I hid it in the bush, in a garbage bag. But that doesn't mean I wasn't doing that. I see myself doing that. Doesn't it make sense? I was over there. I'm here. I'm like a camera, and I'm...
Where did you lay it in the bush, Basil?
Just along the road. Well, that way. But it's all fucked up. I remember thinking that God's making this easy because Carl came out the door. Because when I got to Anastasia's, she walked out the door. As soon as I walked, wasn't even at the door, she just walked out. And I asked Anastasia, I just said, why did you lie in court? And she said, I didn't.
You know, we're coming in the sort of final stretch right now. I think there's around about 7 minutes to go. And I did have in my notes that there's really not a lot of specific stuff for me to say come this point. So, why don't we just jump to a little bit of general channel housekeeping that I normally do on the black screen at the end, but don't really see any point in waiting today. I've been using the Discord a little more as of recent, and I've got to say, in its emphasis on a little more, I am still kind of figuring it out. Don't really get the platform, but I'm enjoying chatting with people and stuff on there. When I do, and I did my first live stream last week, which I really enjoyed. The people who came there and hung out, it was fun. And answered a bunch of questions. We just watched an episode of Nathan For You to start with, and I'll try kind of doing a few more of those slowly, dribs and drabs here and there over the course of the next month or so. And then once I'm really used to it and I've got the flow of it and how to do them and everything, I'll make them more frequent. I'll aim for, say, minimum once a week, and maybe we can even build up from there and do a couple of things once we, again, have enough ideas for stuff we can do with it. But I'm starting to get a sense of it. Anyway, this is my long-winded way of saying, if you are watching this, so you're already a patron, but you're not on the Discord, it's actually most of the Discord, including the streams for the moment, are free to everyone, so you don't even need to be, but obviously you're listening to this, you are. If you're not on there yet, consider joining. If it's not your sort of platform at all, no worries at all, but if it at all is, do come check it out, because I do have plans on building it into more of a vibrant community in the weeks and months to come, and it already has started growing and becoming a touch more vibrant. Not going to say it's exactly a busy Discord server by any stretch of the imagination, but that's where you come in. We can make it more vibrant still. So yeah, please do sign up to the Discord. And in terms of channel updates, what I'm working on right now, I'm at that really ultra scary part of the project where researching and reading into it and developing ideas, but still haven't quite cracked exactly how I'm going to approach it. Though I do have an idea. I just need to review a couple of more things, and then probably early next week start putting pen to paper, or keys to keyboard rather. And it's at that point really when you're actually trying to begin executing the sort of take or approach to it, that you get a better idea of is it actually a good idea and will it actually work. But let's hope that it does, right? We'll just see. But I'll keep you apprised of all of that on the Discord. And part of the reason I mentioned it is I might potentially incorporate that process of trying to figure it out into a stream soon. Not the putting thoughts to paper part, because that would be, I can't do that on stream. But there's something that I might need to review. I think I mentioned it's the Sherry Papini case, right? Done to death, I know. But certainly no one's done it in the sort of way I'm thinking about doing it. There's a thing I need to review as part of my before I start writing thing, and I'm thinking about, I don't know if this is a good idea yet or not yet, so maybe I shouldn't announce it, but thinking about streaming myself, just doing that process, and sort of mainly just working and not interacting with the audience too much. But, it'll give you a chance to rewatch a movie with me, put it that way. So if you're interested in that idea, again, it's not actually a promise that specific thing will happen, but if you're interested in it, sign up to the Discord, because you'll be notified if I do that, with a, event notice that, hey, this is coming up in a day or whatever, and you can get on it and see how it goes. But anyway, just thought I'd mention that. And I think that's all I have to say in way of updates at the moment. People Try to Pet Tigers sometimes obviously has still not been released on the main channel, so I am still waiting back on that HD footage, which again I still might not be able to get, which, God, that would oh, it suck if I delay the release of a video by 2-3 weeks and then I don't even get the thing that I delayed it for, but oh, whatever. Into every life a little rain must fall, as my parents always used to tell me. But we will just see with that. Hopefully not too much longer. Hell, I was hoping I might have it by now. Obviously I don't, but based on the fact that I was hoping to have it by now, we are approaching the point where it's kind of approaching their deadline. Not they really have a deadline. They're not answerable to me, the Collier County Sheriff's Office, but we're approaching a time where I really should have it, so hopefully it won't be too long. But Sherry Papini is actively being worked on. It's just a matter of getting those thoughts to paper, which we're going into that phase, I would think, early next week. All right, let's listen to Basil for just a little bit more, and it really should be a little bit now.
From Renfrew, from Ottawa to Renfrew, I kept telling him, I need to go to the bathroom and piss my pants. And I have a problem, like a hernia, I cannot hold. Mm-hmm. Then when we went to Pembroke, I thought, I didn't even know. I thought I was hanging on there so when we get to Pembroke, I'll be able to have a leak. In Pembroke, they leave me in a paddy wagon and they take somebody else in and they leave me up there and I said, I need a piss.
Detective O'Neill sits through one last moaning session from Borutski as he bitterly recounts the time he wet his pants after not being allowed to relieve himself while in police custody. After that, the interrogation is wrapped up. Borutski will go on to represent himself in court, and during those proceedings he will compose himself in just as an insufferable manner as you've witnessed in this video. Borutski consistently refused to speak, present evidence, or cross-examine witnesses. Then toward the end of the proceedings, he complained to Ontario Superior Court Justice Robert Maringer that he was never afforded the opportunity to present a defence. When it was pointed out by Judge Maringer that he had been provided with aforementioned opportunities, and passed on them multiple times, Borutski simply stated that he did not believe him. Ultimately, Basil Borutski was sentenced to 70 years without the possibility of parole for his crimes, meaning he will need to live to the age of 128 before being eligible for release. If anyone were to manage to live that long, purely for the sake of making life unpleasant for everyone, it probably would be Basil Borutski. But fortunately, nice line. Likelihood, no one will ever have a good reason to think about him ever again. Yeah, good abrupt ending. I enjoyed... there are aspects of that video that I enjoy, no doubt, so I don't mean to bag it too much. It's just under-edited, really, is its main problem. Under-edited and underwritten in the middle. I could have gotten more laugh lines in there. I'm sure the ones that there are, I think, are really solid. It's just a matter of making the ratio of listening to a guy drear on and on and on and on with good jokes and insightful commentary or whatever is not. The ratio between the two isn't perfect in that video, but yeah, it's not a disaster by any stretch of the imagination. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the commentary. I really actually enjoyed talking about things that had nothing to do with the video a lot more than talking about the video itself in this one, because it's just one such kind of video. But whatever your thoughts, let me know in the comments, and if you've got any questions or whatever about anything that I brought up related to the video or not related to the video that you want to ask, just go ahead and put them down too. I will keep an eye on it and do my very best to get back to you. If I ever don't get back to you on a question, DM me. You're my patrons. I want to treat you well. If I don't get back to you on something, likelihood is I just have not seen it. So yeah, let me know, guys. In the meantime, have a great weekend. We should be going into the weekend for you when this goes up. I'm going into mine, certainly. 4:50 p.m. on a Friday. That is what they call peak weekend, my friend. Certified end of the week, or maybe another 10 to 40 minutes on the clock if you're not fortunate enough to be self-employed like I am, thanks to you. But anyway, thanks again, guys. Take it easy. Catch you soon.